Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade, and well, in this one I finally have access to the War Within beta. After shelling a considerate amount of money to Blizzard, so I can test out all the things that are in store for us Retribution Paladins. But I do want to do this in different videos so I can focus on specific aspects of the changes in the beta. So in this first one, I wanted to talk about all the basic changes within our spec and talents. I will be doing separate videos on Herald of the Sun and Templar so I can do a more in-depth look into them, because I think each one deserves its own focused overview. So with that out of the way, let's start with the video. Okay, so the first and biggest change you're going to be noticing on your Retribution Paladin when you are in the War Within is the mastery change. So yes, Blizzard finally buffed our mastery because it was left in a really bad spot after the Retribution Paladin rework back in Dragonflight. Normally you would just call mastery worse versatility back then, but now they buffed it a bit and also added an extra effect to it. So while the effect is very simple, well, Judgment has just an extra chance to blast your target with extra damage, it has some neat interaction with talents that throw multiple judgments. So those talents are Divine Toll and also Blessed Champion. So with each one of these talents you throw 5 judgments, and each one of those 5 judgments has an individual chance to proc the extra damage effect of our mastery, which makes it a really powerful in both single target and cleave encounters. Okay guys, now let's talk about the big stuff, talent changes. There are a lot of them that are happening, and most of them are going in a really nice direction, because we had a lot of problems with our talents in the old talent tree where some stuff didn't really synergize with others. Other talents just reduced the importance of certain stats for us. So with these changes, we are a lot happier. So we're going to first see the talent changes on the Paladin side of the talent tree, and then we're going to focus on the Retribution side because there's more of them there. Okay, so on the Paladin side of a talent tree, I think the most important change they did is to Greater Judgment. So Greater Judgment still does the same thing as in the past, debuffing your target so it takes extra damage on your next Holy Power Spender, but now multiple applications may overlap. That means that you don't technically waste your Judgment if you throw it on top of another, because you can just consume it for the effect on a later Holy Power Spender, which is a really nice quality of life change. Okay guys, up next we are going to take a bit of a nerf as Retribution Paladins because we lose Crusader's Reprieve. As you can see here on your screen, Crusader's Reprieve used to give us 3 yard on our auto attack, interrupt, anything related to Crusader strikes, so Crusading strikes and Templar strikes. Rest in peace. So instead we are going to be picking Touch of Light, which also is another talent that got a change. It used to share a node with Incandescence. So the loss of range is going to be kind of annoying at start, but remember, we still have a ton of other abilities to generate holy power from range. We have Blade of Justice, we have Judgment, we have Hammer of Wrath, so we should be still fine in terms of keeping uptime. But yeah, it is going to be a bit annoying, especially the range kick reduction is going to be the most annoying, I think. There's been like a ton of times that I've been just in range of a mob to kick it so we don't die. So yeah, that's going to be, I think, the part that hurts the most. Anyways, we should be still fine. Okay, so the last change in the Paladin side of our talent tree is to Vengeful Wrath. So this was one of the talents that I said at the start of the video was one of the main culprits of making certain stats not useful for us. In case of the Vengeful Wrath, it was Critical Strike, because old one just gave you a 100% chance to crit with Hammers of Wrath. Now, the new one is a lot better because Hammer of Wrath deals 50% more increased damage to targets below 35%, making it an excellent tool for dealing with execute fights, single target encounters, and you can even use it as a priority tool on certain situations because it does have some synergy with our hero talents that we will be talking in future videos. But for now, those are all the changes that we are getting on the Paladin side of the talent tree. Now let's move to the Retribution side. Okay guys, let's talk about the Retribution Paladin talent changes, and there's a lot of them, and some of them are really impactful for us. So the first one we're going to look at is Righteous Cause and Art of War. Both of these talents have got some small touch-ups. Righteous Cause is the biggest one because now each Holy Power spent has 6% chance to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice. So normally you spend 3 Holy Power on your spenders, and so this means that you have an 18% chance every time you spend to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice. If you're using things like Divine Purpose or Imperium Power, those count as if you were using 3 Holy Power, so you have 18% chance to reset on those as well. So while this change makes Righteous Cause a bit better than it was in the past, because in the past, it only used single target spenders to reset a Blade of Justice. It's going to be hard to compete with Art of War because of the small text they added to Art of War at the end. So your auto attacks still have a 20% chance to reset Blade of Justice, you know, and that's all nice and dandy, but critical strikes increase the chance by an additional 10%. So this means that we have an extra synergy with Critical Strike, meaning that our stats are probably going to be looking like Haste, Mastery, Critical Strike, or something like that. So once you get enough Critical Strike, Art of War is just going to overtake whatever Righteous Cause can do. So I'm thinking, yeah, Art of War is still going to have the leg up here. Also, it has support from other things like Zealot's Fervor to add an additional attack speed to it, you know. So yeah, while they made Righteous Cause a bit better, I'm still seeing it harder to compete with Art of War. Anyways, let's move to the next change. Okay, for the next one we have Templar Strikes. So Templar Strikes was a fan favorite back in Dragonflight when it appeared. The problem with old Templar Strikes was that it didn't scale with Haste or Critical Strike. It is scaled with Haste because it had an internal GCD that it was like 1 or 1.5 seconds, I don't really remember. But it didn't go up or down with Haste. And the Critical Strike part was that the second hit, the Templar Slash, did it always critically strike. So the problem was any critical strike you had was worthless. Now they fixed that by making Templar Slash no longer always critically strike on the second hit. Instead of that, it will burn your enemy by 50% of the damage it dealt. So if the Templar Strike critically strikes, the dot is obviously going to be bigger. That means that it scales with Critical Strike. And the dot itself will scale with Haste, because the more haste you have, the higher amount of ticks of damage that dot is going to be doing. So yeah, I think that's a really nice way that they fixed Templar Strikes. Okay, so for the next change, it's only a small change in the text. So Divine Wrath increases the duration of Avenging Wrath in Crusade by 3 seconds, like it always did. But now Radiant Glory is added to the mix. So what's Radiant Glory? Well, we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Okay guys, up next we have Divine Hammers. So this is either going to be an incredible spell for us or something that sees very niche use in very specific situations. So Divine Hammers got a massive rework from Dragonflight to the War Within. Now it's a 2-minute cooldown that whenever you use it, your Divine Hammers still spin around you, you know, but every 1.8 seconds they are going to consume 1 holy power. While active, your Judgment, Blade of Justice, and Crusader Strikes are going to recharge a lot faster, so they're gonna go off cooldown a lot faster, so you can use them and sustain this ability. But whenever you press one of your holy power builders, your hammers are going to spin 15% faster. So that means that eventually you're not going to able to generate enough holy power to keep this Divine Hammer going. So it's kind of works like a Breath of Sindragosa in that way, you know. Eventually you have to let it go. The thing is, it goes really fast. So I did this test and I managed to make it last like I think 9 to 8 seconds. But in those 9 to 8 seconds, it did like the 4th amount of my top damage, you know, here. So it is a pretty powerful cooldown, but you probably are going to need a ton of haste to make this work, because it doesn't really matter if your cooldowns are recharging faster if you don't have enough GCD reduction to use those holy power builders, you know. So I was using Crusade here. I had a pretty decent amount of haste, but I'm thinking that Divine Hammers is probably going to be one of those spells that you take once you have like baseline 30% haste or something like that or higher, and then you use on top of that Crusade, so you can like make it last a lot longer. Anyways, I'm thinking this is going to be an incredibly powerful spell. Just got to get the stats so we can get there. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay guys, for the next talent changes we have to talk about them in pairs, because these two talents have incredibly good synergy between each other. So this is Judge, Jury, and Executioner plus Vanguards of Justice. So let's talk about Judge, Jury, and Executioner first. So Divine Storm has a 40% chance to make your next Final Verdict hit 3 additional targets. So basically you hit 4 things with Final Verdict when you proc this. And Vanguards of Justice also, whenever you hit something with Final Verdict, that takes 50% extra damage from your next Divine Storm. So you can already see the synergy, you know, you get the proc of Judge, Jury, Executioner, you hit 4 things with Final Verdict, then you have this Vanguards of Justice, and all those 4 targets are taking 50% increased damage from your Divine Storm. That's a lot of value, and this damage profile has a lot of usages in places like, there's mostly raid fights that do this, you know, there's a big the boss, he spawns like 3 or 4 adds, and then you have this type of profile, so you can like hit them all with increased damage, divine storms, and final verdicts. So yeah, this is really good for those types of fights. I can even say that in Mythic Plus this could find a place if the pools aren't that big. There are some dungeons where normally Bliss like puts like a pack of 5 and then a pack of 5 and then a pack of 5, and you can't really mesh them together, so you are forced to play packs of 5. So if there is a dungeon with that type of route, this build could be really good there as well. But mostly I'm thinking this is going to be for council fights and raid bosses that spawn a small amount of adds. Anyways, let's go to the next talents. Okay, next up we have Hylar's Wrath. So Mastery Hylar's Judgment is 50% more effective on Judgment and Hammer of Wrath. That's really good because we want our stats to be a lot more valuable on our Paladin abilities. Judgment applies an additional stack of Greater Judgment if it is known. So basically you apply 2 Judgment debuffs on a target whenever you throw a Judgment instead of 1 with this talent, which is pretty powerful because, as we all know, with the change on Greater Judgment, your Judgment applications overlap, so you're never wasting any of that damage. Pretty good change. Let's go to the next one. Okay, next up we have a small change to adjudication. Instead of Hammer of Wrath making spinny hammers appear whenever it crits, since it no longer has that Vengeful Wrath passive, now instead of that, Hammer of Wrath has a chance to cast Hylar's Judgment on its target. This is really good because Hylar's Judgment, if you remember, is our Mastery secondary effect, the Holy Blast of extra damage. That means that in single target encounters we are going to be proccing our Mastery from either Judgment or Hammer of Wrath, so that's really good for those raid fights and priority targets on Mythic Plus dungeons. Okay, next up we have some positional changes on talents and some small quality of life text adjustments. So the first position change is to Wake of Ashes, which is now basically just a core ability, and everyone should take it always because it has synergy with our hero talents that we will be talking about in the future videos. The next positional change is here, where Shield of Vengeance now is a no choice with Aegis of Protection. That means that you either choose to have 2 small defensive with Shield of Vengeance and 20% damage reduction Divine Protection, or you can just take 1 defensive that is a 40% wall on Divine Protection. Most people are just going to take double defensive with Shield of Vengeance and small Divine Protection because it's just a lot more flexible. Okay, next for minor quality of life text adjustments, we have here one in Blades of Light, where now instead of having the passive of 5% increased damage on Holy Strike abilities that was in Divine Arbiter, it is now here on Blades of Light, which makes it on par with Burning Crusade because that has the 5% increase on rated abilities. Basically, that means that you're always going to get those damage amps on everything you are going to be doing. The next text adjustment is here with Seething Flames. Since the Wake of Ashes took this place up here, they moved Seething Flames to this place, which means that you're no longer going to be able to choose between uncapped AoE Wake of Ashes and Seething Flame Wake of Ashes, which I think it's a fine thing to do because there's no longer that option, well, that decision that you have to make. Now you always have your Seething Flame Wake of Ashes that, while it does less damage to secondary targets, it's still good for nice priority damage, and it's not so far away from the uncapped Wake of Ashes old version. It is more than made up for with the hero talent additions that we're going to be getting. And now let's talk about the big 2 capstone talents that we're getting. Okay, next up, I think these are the most powerful capstone talents we've gotten and probably outshine anything else that we have on this row. First one is Burn to Ash. This one is just really packed with a lot of strengths, but it has to scale. So when Truth's Wake critically strikes, it extends its duration by 2 seconds. Truth's Wake, by the way, is the dot part of Wake of Ashes. So your other damage over time effects deal 30% increased damage to targets afflicted by Truth's Wake. We have a lot of dot damage, especially on Herald of the Sun. We also have like other dot damage on our normal Retribution Paladin kit, you know, Expurgation, we have Consecration, we also have Divine Hammers that are considered over time effect. So yeah, there's a lot of things that extra damage is going to be increasing. But not only that, once we get enough critical strike chance and we scale up, probably this is going to be at the end of the 2nd season or the start of the 3rd season, we're probably going to be able to get Truth's Wake to be permanently on our targets, making that damage increase also permanent, which is incredibly powerful, you know. So yeah, Burn to Ash, just a really powerful capstone, eventually is going to scale to a monstrous degree. So yeah, I'm really happy that they gave us this. And well, I saved the best for last. This is Radiant Glory. I think this is going to be one of the most build influential talents that we're getting.
Radiant Glory basically removes our wings cooldowns and instead makes it so whenever we use Wake of Ashes we get wings for 11.5 seconds and have a passive chance to proc wings with every holy power spent. This basically now makes Red have 3 different wings playstyles: the old 2-minute Crusade Red, the 1-minute Red, and the Wake of Ashes passive proc playstyle that is Radiant Glory. This talent does have massive synergy with one of the hero talents, Herald of the Sun, that we will be talking in depth in the next video, but yeah, this talent is just super fun to play with and will definitely see huge use in the War Within. And well guys, that's going to be the end of this review on the basic changes that Retribution Paladins had in this beta period. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it informative, and if you did, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching everyone.